In 1969, General Mills convinced Americans that fake meat was the future. They called it textured vegetable protein, or TVP, and by the mid-70s, the USDA was mixing it into school lunches across the country. Fast forward to today, and this stuff is hiding in supposedly healthy protein bars, veggie burgers, and meat substitutes filling grocery store shelves. Here's the problem. This industrial waste product might be one of the worst things you can put in your body. I'm talking hexane extraction, phytoestrogens that mess with your hormones, and anti-nutrients that actually prevent you from absorbing the minerals you need. And the craziest part? The health food industry has convinced millions of people this is somehow better than real meat. Let me start with what TVP actually is, because the name sure doesn't give it away. Textured vegetable protein sounds wholesome, right? Like something you'd find at a farmer's market. In reality, it's what's left over after they squeeze the oil out of soybeans for vegetable oil production. They take this leftover soy flour, basically the industrial waste from making soybean oil, and process it into these little chunks or flakes. Think about that for a second. The main ingredient in your healthy veggie burger started as a byproduct. It's like if someone took sawdust from a lumber mill and convinced you it was a superfood. The processing method is where things get really sketchy. Most TVP is made using something called hexane extraction. Hexane is a petroleum-based solvent. Yeah, the same family of chemicals used in gasoline. They literally bathe the soybeans in hexane to extract every last bit of oil, which leaves residue in the final product. According to a 2009 study in the Journal of the American Oil Chemists Society, hexane residues can remain in soy products even after processing. The FDA allows up to 50 parts per million of hexane residue in foods, which they claim is safe. But here's my question. When did we start thinking it was okay to have any petroleum products in our food? Now let's talk about what TVP does to your body. Soybeans are loaded with something called phytoestrogens, specifically compounds called isoflavones. These are plant-based chemicals that can mimic estrogen in your body. A single serving of TVP can contain 40 to 50 milligrams of isoflavones. To put that in perspective, some studies suggest that 50 milligrams per day is enough to impact hormone levels. For men, that could mean lower testosterone. For women, it might disrupt menstrual cycles. The research is honestly all over the place on this, but do you really want to be the guinea pig? I actually tried eating TVP for a month a few years back when I was experimenting with vegetarian diets. Within 2 weeks, I felt constantly bloated and my energy levels crashed. Turns out, that's not uncommon. Here's something most people don't know about soy. It contains anti-nutrients, specifically phytic acid and enzyme inhibitors. Phytic acid binds to minerals like iron, zinc, and calcium in your digestive tract and prevents you from absorbing them. So even if you're eating TVP thinking you're getting protein, you're actually blocking your body from absorbing other essential nutrients from your meal. The enzyme inhibitors mess with your digestion by interfering with the enzymes that break down protein. This can lead to gas, bloating, and that uncomfortable feeling in your gut that makes you wonder why you ate this stuff in the first place. Traditional Asian cultures figured this out centuries ago. They fermented their soy products, things like miso, tempeh, and natto. Fermentation breaks down these anti-nutrients and makes the soy easier to digest. But TVP, there's no fermentation. It's just industrially processed soy flour that's been extruded at high temperatures and pressures. We skipped all the wisdom and went straight to the factory method. Let's talk about the protein quality for a minute, because that's the whole selling point, right? TVP is technically a complete protein, meaning it contains all 9 essential amino acids. The problem is bioavailability, how well your body can actually use that protein. Animal proteins have a biological value of around 90 to 100%. Your body can absorb and use almost all of it. Soy protein typically sits around 70 to 75%. That's a significant difference. If you're eating TVP thinking you're getting the same quality protein as a chicken breast or a piece of fish, you're kidding yourself. And here's something that really bugs me. The way TVP is marketed to people who are trying to lose weight or eat healthier. Walk down the health food aisle and you'll see TVP in products labeled high protein, plant-based, and heart-healthy. But nobody's talking about the sodium content. TVP products are often loaded with salt to make them taste like anything other than cardboard. A typical serving can have 400 to 600 milligrams of sodium. That's a quarter of your recommended daily intake in one meal component. If you're someone trying to manage blood pressure or reduce sodium for heart health, this is the opposite of what you should be eating. Remember those hexane residues I mentioned earlier? There's another processing concern that doesn't get enough attention. When they extrude soy flour at high heat and pressure to create the texture of TVP, they can create something called processed free glutamic acid. This is different from naturally occurring glutamic acid in foods. Some researchers believe processed free glutamic acid can trigger headaches and other reactions in sensitive individuals, similar to MSG. The research is limited, but it's worth considering if you've ever felt weird after eating heavily processed soy products. The environmental argument is where TVP manufacturers really push hard. They'll tell you soy protein is more sustainable than animal protein, requires less water, produces fewer emissions. And look, on paper that makes sense. But here's what they don't tell you. 90% of the world's soybean crop is genetically modified. These GMO soybeans are engineered to withstand massive applications of herbicides like glyphosate, also known as Roundup. A 2018 study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association found glyphosate residues in over 70% of people tested. This stuff accumulates in your body over time, and the long-term health effects are still being debated. So yeah, you might be saving water, but you're potentially exposing yourself to chemical residues with every bite. My neighbor is one of those hardcore vegans who swears by TVP. She makes these taco crumbles with it every week. I tried them once. Honestly, the texture was unsettling, kind of spongy and grainy at the same time. She has to load them up with spices and sauce just to make them edible. That's another red flag for me. If something needs that much seasoning to be palatable, maybe your body is trying to tell you something. The digestive issues with TVP go beyond just the anti-nutrients. Soybeans contain oligosaccharides, which are complex sugars that humans can't fully digest. When these reach your colon, bacteria ferment them, producing gas. If you've ever wondered why you feel so bloated and gassy after eating a veggie burger or soy-based meat substitute, that's your answer. Some people can tolerate it better than others, but for a lot of folks, it's a real problem. And when you're eating TVP regularly, maybe in protein bars, baked meat products, and meat extenders, you're setting yourself up for chronic digestive discomfort. Here's where the history gets interesting. TVP was developed in the 1960s by food technologists working for companies like Archer Daniels Midland and General Mills. They saw a way to profit from soybean waste. Instead of throwing away or using the defatted soy flour for animal feed, they could process it and sell it to humans. The space program even tested it as astronaut food because it was cheap, lightweight, and shelf-stable. By the early 1970s, the USDA approved TVP as a meat extender in the National School Lunch Program. Schools could replace up to 30% of ground meat with TVP and still call it a meat dish. That's how cost-cutting becomes policy. They weren't thinking about optimal nutrition. They were thinking about stretching the budget. The protein quality issue becomes even more important when you consider essential amino acids. While TVP is technically a complete protein, it's particularly low in methionine, one of the 9 essential amino acids. Methionine is crucial for metabolism and detoxification in your liver. Animal proteins are rich in methionine. Plant proteins, especially from legumes, tend to be lower. If you're relying heavily on TVP as your main protein source, you could develop deficiencies over time. And before someone says you can combine it with grains to get complete amino acids, sure, that works in theory. But you're still dealing with all the other problems, the anti-nutrients, the processing chemicals, the digestive issues. Let's talk about thyroid function, because this is serious. Soy isoflavones can interfere with thyroid hormone production. They inhibit an enzyme called thyroid peroxidase, which is essential for making thyroid hormones. If you already have thyroid issues, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, anything like that, eating significant amounts of soy can make it worse. A study published in 2006 in the journal Thyroid found that postmenopausal women consuming 16 milligrams of isoflavones per day for 3 months showed increased thyroid-stimulating hormone, TSH, levels. That's a sign your thyroid is struggling. And remember, a serving of TVP can have 40 to 50 milligrams of isoflavones. Do the math. The whole fake meat industry has exploded in recent years, and TVP is a key ingredient in a lot of these products. Companies are marketing heavily processed soy products as environmentally friendly and healthy alternatives to meat. But when you actually read the ingredient labels, it's alarming. You're looking at 20-plus ingredients, including various stabilizers, emulsifiers, and flavor enhancers. Natural flavors, which can mean almost anything. Methyl cellulose, which is used in laxatives and construction materials. These products are ultra-processed foods masquerading as health food. If your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize it as food, maybe you shouldn't be eating it regularly. The protein comparison becomes even more stark when you look at nutrient density. A 3-ounce serving of chicken breast gives you about 27 grams of protein, plus B vitamins, selenium, and phosphorus, all in a highly bioavailable form. A 3-ounce serving of TVP gives you about 15 grams of protein, but with all those anti-nutrients blocking mineral absorption and lower bioavailability. You'd need to eat more TVP to get the same usable protein, which means more exposure to everything else that comes with it. Here's something that really frustrates me about the health food movement: the demonization of animal protein. Somewhere along the line, we decided that all meat is bad and all plant protein is good. That's oversimplified to the point of being dangerous. Humans evolved eating animal protein. Our bodies are designed to digest and utilize it efficiently. The idea that we should replace real food with industrially processed soybean waste because it's healthier defies both evolution and common sense. I'm not saying you have to eat meat at every meal, but let's be honest about what we're replacing it with. The affordability angle is where TVP manufacturers hook a lot of people. It's cheap, way cheaper than meat. A pound of TVP costs maybe $3 or $4 and rehydrates to make a lot of food. Compare that to grass-fed beef at $10 a pound or wild-caught salmon at $15 a pound. For families on a tight budget, the choice seems obvious. But here's what you're trading. You're saving money now while potentially creating health problems that'll cost you later. Poor nutrient absorption, hormone disruption, digestive issues, these things add up. Sometimes paying more for real food is the actual economical choice. Let me tell you about a study that really opened my eyes. Researchers at the University of Illinois in 2002 fed rats diets containing soy protein versus casein, milk protein. The rats eating soy protein showed significantly lower growth rates and bone density compared to the casein group. The researchers attributed this to the anti-nutrients in soy interfering with mineral absorption. Now, I know we're not rats, but these kinds of studies raise legitimate questions about what happens when soy becomes a dietary staple. The fermentation point is worth coming back to because it's such a clear example of traditional wisdom versus modern shortcuts. In Japan, where people eat a lot of soy, they're mostly eating fermented forms: miso soup, tempeh, natto. These have been part of the diet for thousands of years, and they're prepared in ways that make them more digestible and nutritious. TVP has been around for about 50 years, and it's made using industrial processes that prioritize convenience and profit over nutrition. We're running a massive experiment on public health, and the results aren't looking great. Here's a question I ask people who defend TVP. If it's such a great protein source, why does it need so much processing to be edible? Real food doesn't need to be extruded, flavored, colored, and textured to be appealing. An egg is an egg. A piece of fish is a piece of fish. But TVP starts as flavorless beige pellets that need to be transformed into something resembling food. That should tell you something right there. The impact on gut health is another angle that doesn't get discussed enough. Your gut microbiome, all those bacteria in your digestive system, plays a huge role in your overall health. It affects everything from your immune system to your mood. When you eat foods loaded with anti-nutrients and hard-to-digest compounds, you're creating an environment where harmful bacteria can thrive and beneficial bacteria struggle. Over time, this can lead to dysbiosis, which is just a fancy term for an unhealthy gut. And once your gut health is compromised, everything else starts to fall apart. Your energy, your skin, your mental clarity, your immune function. I want to address the people who say, "But I feel fine eating TVP." First of all, feeling fine isn't the same as being optimally healthy. You might not have obvious symptoms, but that doesn't mean everything is working as well as it could be. Second, some effects are cumulative. Hormone disruption doesn't happen overnight. Mineral deficiencies develop slowly. By the time you notice something's wrong, you've been eating this stuff for years. And third, everyone's different. Maybe you're one of the lucky people whose body tolerates soy better. But why take the risk when there are clearly better options available? So here's my challenge for you. Next time you're in the grocery store and you reach for that veggie burger or that protein bar with soy protein isolate or TVP on the label, ask yourself if you're really making the healthiest choice. Are you buying into marketing or are you nourishing your body with real food? I'd love to know, have you noticed any effects from eating soy products regularly? Drop a comment below and let me know your experience. And if this opened your eyes to what's really in your food, hit that subscribe button, because I've got a lot more nutrition myths to bust. The food industry banks on you not asking questions. Let's prove them wrong.